Awesome.
All right, here we go. Hi, I'm Lizzie, and I am the founder of Inspired Alchemy. I am an alchemical and transformative coach and mom to a teenager. And this is Aleeza.
Hi, I'm Aleeza. I do Aleeza's tarot page. I do tarot readings, past life readings, oracle readings, so a little bit of that life coaching. I kind of do all of the above. I'm not a mom, but I have a lot of birds. And so we're actually going to be talking about the villain archetype today. The reason we're talking about it is because I actually did a video the other day acknowledging how sometimes we have to be the villain, and that's okay because it initiates change and whatnot, right? So that's why we're talking about this because we actually got feedback from a number of people, and it's something I've been seeing as a common topic with my clients. And like I said, Lizzie and I have been talking about it, so we figured we'd do a video related to this. So I'm gonna have Lizzie kind of explain like the different things that we tend to villainize.
So, yes, obviously we villainize people, right? But we
Yeah.
also villainize emotions and we villainize situations. All of these things can cause triggers, which will cause us to villainize them.
Yeah. Well, especially like anger, right? Like
Yeah.
anger is always seen as a negative thing. So like one thing we were talking about the other day is how like anger, sadness, like you said, pride, success, happiness, even happiness can be villainized, right? Because we
Absolutely, yes.
feel like jealousy towards people. Anger is seen as negative because it's just an uncomfortable feeling, but it's also just information and it's what we do with it that actually matters most. And that's why like we tend to avoid it, right? Because we don't like uncomfortable feelings.
Everybody tends to villainize anger, though. And anger is not a bad thing. Like you
No, I
said,
think the
it's,
movies and media play into that, right?
yeah. I don't think that it's a bad thing. We're all told that anger is like this thing, this ra and rage or these things that we should like shy away from, but they're really not. I mean, it's what you do with it, right? Like just like you
Yeah.
said, it's like what can I use to fuel this? For example, when I get angry about something, I obviously will go into it, right? And go, okay, why am I angry about this? Then I will process it, and then I will turn that into obviously alchemy. So I'll create something.
Yes. Right. And it's like using that to transform into a positive and to kind of motivate us to do something about it so that we don't have to sit in that emotion, right?
Right. It's
Yeah.
about not about bypassing these things either, obviously. It's about processing it, sitting in it, and then allowing it to just go.
Well, and because when we avoid it, right, what happens? Like we tend to have outbursts,
Oh
meltdowns,
yeah.
guilty. I am so guilty. Like me and that like go way back. We've been homies for a long time. The whole meltdown and anger thing.
Yeah. I mean, well, look at toddlers or even kids in general. When you tell them,
Mm.
don't get mad, you have nothing to be mad about. What does that do? They suppress it and then outburst later on because there's,
Well, you're telling someone to ignore their emotions and not
yeah,
like acknowledge it, right?
yeah, yeah.
And I think that's probably part of the now that I'm thinking about it and we're talking about it is like that's probably what exacerbates a lot of our mental health issues, right? Is suppressed stuff, suppressed emotion. Just like we were talking about the other day with depression, how it's really compression,
Hmm.
right? And not being able to express ourselves or have an outlet for it. Just like kids crying, that's them getting that emotion out so that they don't have to hold on to it, right?
Yeah, when they're
So
told don't
maybe,
cry, what does that do?
right, that teaches us not to, right? Or even with
Especially
men.
boys, especially
Yes,
boys.
yes. Men don't cry, men toughen up, pick yourself up by the bootstraps, you're the provider, right?
Yeah,
You
that's
you don't have you can't show emotion, that shows weakness, right? But
absolutely
it's not
not.
really weak. It's
No.
if anything, I don't think it's weak. I think it's 100% honest and being authentic,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So what would be an example of you being the villain?
Okay, so I was, this is gonna be with It's family. Obviously, with, you know, a lot of people can probably relate to this, but
Yeah.
family. Yeah. I am the villain in my mom's story. I know
Mm.
100%. Not that she doesn't love me, but I know that I'm the villain in her story. Um, why am I the
What
villain?
about you makes the villain to her?
Yeah, why am I the villain? Um, I had to, in order to become the woman I am now, to become the mom that I wanted to be able to heal, I knew that I had to let go of my mom. So, and it was really difficult because my whole life I tried to save her, right? My mom
Mm.
for a long time was the villain to me. But
That's
now that
fair.
I've healed, I've and I've taken myself out of the situation, I can see that she had her own stuff going on. You know, kids don't realize that their parents have their own shit, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
not that anything that she did was right or the way that she treated me was right. It's just I don't see her as the villain anymore because I've healed and I had to do that and remove myself to be able to do that.
Well, she didn't have the tools, it
No,
sounds
she
like,
didn't have the tools.
right?
No.
Yeah.
And so she's still the same person she is, but I've grown, right?
Yeah.
I've built a relationship with my daughter that my family hasn't seen in generations between mothers and
Yes.
daughters because I decided I was going to be the villain in someone's story, but I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't, I was going to detach myself from them being the villain in mine, right?
Yes, that's fair. I like
So
that.
there's no trigger there anymore. But it was hard because it's kind of like you have to grieve somebody that's alive still.
Was that part, what was the hardest part about all that?
Yeah, it was having to bury someone who's alive. I mean, not being buried
Yeah.
alive, obviously,
Well, yeah, right.
but
That would be true villainous action.
yeah,
Not that
it,
kind of villain.
not that kind of villain. That's going a little too far. But it was
Right?
having to grieve somebody that's still alive that you wish
Mm,
you could, especially your mom. You wish you could have that relation.
yes.
You wish
Yeah.
your mom, and you wish that you could just go and say, "Hey, mom, I'm having a problem," because they
Right.
are still alive, right? But you can't.
Hmm.
So
It's
that's
not
the
an
hardest part.
option.
Mhm.
Yeah,
What was the
that's fair.
hardest part for you? Where were
Oh,
you a villain?
I am definitely a villain in my family story as well. I can definitely relate to that. And I think a lot of people will relate to both of our stories. For me, it was just, I think it was honestly my mental health that was villainized and me speaking up about my mental health. And then after my parents made me homeless, after I had an 11-year relationship and no car, no job, no money, everything kind of just came crashing down at once. And I spoke up about how I felt. And my parents came from that generation and culture, being half Black, half Mexican, of we don't talk about mental health. We'll just ignore it and hope it goes away. Or that whole, well, you have a lot to be thankful for, pick yourself up by the bootstraps kind of mentality. And, you know, after I stopped talking to them, after they made me homeless, I got a lot of flack from it, from people I would mention it to, especially in the family, because it has a domino effect. And I had a lot of people say, oh, but those are your parents. What if something were to happen to them?
Oh my
Well, something
God.
happened to me and they didn't
Yeah.
care. So why?
I
And
got that all the time.
did you
Like, how
too?
could you not talk to your mom?
That's your mom.
But
But that's your mom.
would you stay in a toxic relationship?
Right. Well, and with that being said, I'm glad you brought that up because that whole situation taught me, I had kind of like a little aha light bulb moment of, well, if this person wasn't my family member or longtime friend or relative, whatever, would I even be friends with this person? And sometimes the answer is yes, but if the answer is no, then that's when we have to establish hard boundaries. So my parents would like give me gifts for Christmas and stuff like that. And I would just, I finally told them, stop doing that. If you can't apologize or acknowledge what you did, just stop. Money is not an apology. It's not an accountability. Things or material things are not accountability. And so I had to be the villain. and I got a lot of flack for it for so long, but it's interesting because I've held my boundaries. I have since had two family members come back to me and say, "You know what? I'm really sorry that I made the comments I did because your story has stayed consistent and you've stayed true to your word and held your boundaries, and I can see how they had their part in it." So I've had a little bit of vindication with that, even though my parents never have to this day never apologized. But like you said, the hardest part about that was, like I said, the two people that brought me into the world were fine with me out of it, and that's not okay. And so I've had to mourn the loss of having my parents in my life. My dad was always really strict, but my mom and I were really close. So it was kind of a really blindsiding thing for me to have this happen. And so for me, it was really hard to mourn the loss of my mom more so than my dad. It was easier for my dad because he was an ass. I already had issues with him, and it was easier to kind of put that to rest. Um, it was my mom that was the hardest, and a lot of people that knew my family and knew me were not surprised by my dad's actions, but were also blindsided by my mom's. So that was definitely the hardest part for sure.
You talking about that, and I was like, man, I think I've been villainized since I was actually born.
Oh.
Yeah,
Oh, well, think about how many people get married because that's what society says that they do. And you get the kids, the 2.5 kids, the house, the car, you do all those things. That's our parents' generation, right?
yeah,
And if you weren't ready for that, or that wasn't necessarily what you wanted, but felt obligated to, I could see how kids would be villainized or quote unquote inconvenienced.
right.
What makes you think that you were a villain from birth then?
My mom was really young when she had me. She was 16. And obviously, I don't want to go into
Mm,
her story too much.
yeah.
It's not my story to tell, but she was 16 when she had me, and it was made very clear that I was a burden.
Mm,
So,
yeah.
yeah. And obviously, when we talk about villains, we're not going into victim mentality. This is just a
No.
conversation, right? I just want everybody
Yeah.
to know that. Like, this is not like, oh my God, I'm a victim. I'm a villain. Nothing like that. It's just how the
I think
human.
it's more about taking our power back and
Yeah,
accepting our role
absolutely.
in things.
Yeah.
And part of our role is to play the villain to initiate the change that wouldn't happen elsewhere otherwise. Like, what do you think your life would be like if you didn't have boundaries with your mom? Ooh. Oh,
No,
I got the chills as I said that.
no. I would not be the person I am. I would not have been as brave to do the things. That was probably one of the biggest, bravest things that I think I've ever done was to say I can't anymore with you.
Mm,
And so I
yeah.
wouldn't be the mom that I am. I would be a disaster. Like, because I used to be an anxious mess, like walking
Mm,
on eggshells all the time. Um, and I just couldn't heal, right? And my daughter
yeah.
deserved more.
Yes.
So if
Just like you did.
I don't think that if I would have kept my mom around, I would have been able to have and cultivate the relationship I have with my daughter.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I can see that for sure.
Yeah.
I think I would be a totally different person. I don't think I would be as far as I am on my healing and awareness journey
Mhm.
as I am. And to be
Oh
honest,
yeah,
it was my
absolutely.
parents. Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And it was ultimately, honestly, if I'm to be completely honest, is it was my parents making me homeless that ultimately led me to going professional with my cards. And I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing professionally if it wasn't for that. So, I have to at least give them credit for that.
Oh, I wouldn't be where I am either. I wouldn't have opened my
Yeah.
business. I wouldn't have been on this journey. I mean, there's no way.
You and I wouldn't even be having this conversation if you think about it, right?
No. Or I've gone
Yeah.
down all the rabbit holes we've gone down. Yeah.
Yes. I love our rabbit holes. They're so fun. Well,
Um,
with that being said, I would say in conclusion, like, there is a point in time and place to being the villain. It's not a 24/7 thing. I think it's circumstantial.
Yeah.
But I think, again, like I've said before, I think the ultimate goal of the villain is to initiate change. But also, if you think about it, when there's a villain, it helps unite people too, because they have a common goal or enemy in a sense. So it helps keep others from being divided, especially
Yeah.
right now with our political climate and everything right now, too.
Yeah. I mean, everything. Like it's always been divided. I think we've always been
Hmm.
divided among so many different things. But but
Yeah.
the villain, once we realize that that person is just a person or that situation is just a situation, or we allow that emotion, we don't need to villainize it anymore. We have an awareness, so then we can let it go.
It loses its power.
Yeah, it loses its power. And then I had a friend tell me, you control your mind or your mind controls you.
Oh, I love that.
So
Mm.
you have to
That's a good
work
way to
through
end it.
things. Yeah.
Well, and with that being said, we will put the links to that video that I mentioned earlier that I did in the description. You can follow me at Aleeza's Tarot page on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube.
And I am also on Instagram, Facebook. Uh, I have a TikTok. I haven't put anything on it yet, really. And
Until now.
YouTube. Yep. Until now at inspiredalchemyllc.com. Mm-hmm. And yes, you can go to we have merch too for
Yes, and we
like
have a
the,
Facebook group as
yeah,
well, so
yeah.
feel free to join us there too.
Yeah, it's a private Facebook group where we discuss all of this stuff. Yeah. All right.
Perfect. Well, I hope everyone has a good day, and it was so fun talking to you, Lizzie.
It was fun talking to you too. It's always a pleasure. All right.
Likewise.
Bye.